So, Mr. Katai, Ngoni Katai. So, it's we haven't caught up in a while. I think I should say that as a start. So, you and me go way back, but it's a
Yeah.
kind of interrupted way back because all of us guys that went to school together kind of went different ways, different boarded different airplanes and went to different shores. But it's always I feel like it's always good to stay in touch with people that you had a connection with, whether it was school, whether us growing up in Zimbabwe or whatever. But we just wanted to pick up things, have a conversation, try and help some people out there, or even if it doesn't, maybe people can have a bit of a jiggle or a laugh at our expense. Yeah. So so welcome. So so I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I don't know, where should we start? So I guess maybe the question to ask is kind of how's life been for you in the last few years? Whether it be family, relationships or kids, that kind of thing. What's been your what's been your highlights in the last few years?
Before we go there, I want to admit something. As a kid, I had some issues with you tonight.
Oh wait, let's stop recording.
I always wondered, how does Tendai have such a last name, and we have all these crazy last names like Katai, and he's just kind of like, no, my name is Tendai Horton, Horton, short. So ever since I was like 10, 12, like kind of like hate like this guy Horton. So why doesn't he have such a cool after name? Like
when
last
we were lighties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wondered that, but it was kind of like impolite to ask as kids. But it was like somehow we're kind of like intrigued always, like people in Belvedere, like
Yeah.
how does he have that last name,
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing that I always wondered about you. Really.
Well, okay. Well, let me set the record straight. Because I should say there were, a lot of guys that we used to go to school with that were, these days we have to be politically correct, isn't it? So we had certain people that came from a different background, and they weren't necessarily, I want to say they weren't necessarily like us in the sense that they weren't like either, sort of black Zimbabweans, or I don't know what the term would be. There'd be guys that have, I don't know, you can correct me, or you can, you help me if you understand what I'm trying to get to, that had certain names, that their last name was like, Roberts, or, guy like James Roberts. And there was kind of like a link from, I think it was like South Africa, and, what they used to then call, coloreds, but there was still a distinction with Zim. But I guess from my background, it was like, my mom was Zim, and my mom, went to travel to England, and she met a Caribbean guy from the West Indies, from Guyana in the West Indies, and and that's how I came about. So he happened to have obviously an English surname. His name was Henry, and he had an English surname. So I guess being the son, I carried that last name, and then obviously moms went back to Zim, and she never thought of changing the name to her Zimbabwean name. And I thought, I guess obviously because she thought like one day the English surname might come in handy.
And it definitely has.
So that's kind of that's how it came about. And it's interesting because when I then went to high school, that's when it became more of like a nickname.
An issue.
Yeah. Not an issue, but because at high school they called you, the school that I went to, they called you by your last name.
That was the standard.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I got to start playing senior rugby, we had a South African coach.
Robert.
And, Robertson. And, he was the one that he was just like, he started calling me Hortz. And that's when it stuck. So it's been a long time ago.
But good to know. Because I always wondered. for a minute, you know.
Yeah.
This is not fair, you know. Home and away, he's winning. He's winning.
And you know, I'll say a funny story, but actually, my dad being from the Caribbean, and we're still in touch. He's actually retired too. He used to live in the UK, but he lives in Suriname now, which is a country, I think, in South America, which is Spanish speaking. So, you know, he was telling me why he gave me the name Kwame, because Kwame is also my middle name, which is a Ghanaian name from Ghana. So he was a fan of the whole Pan-Africanist movement. Kwame Nkrumah was a very popular Pan-Africanist, and like a lot of well, not a lot, but some Caribbean people respect their African roots, and they respect I want to call them pure, but yeah, Pan-Africanist is more fitting title. They always respected them, so some of them gave their kids names or middle names of Pan-Africanists. So it's always funny sometimes when I meet Ghanaians even here in the UK, and I'm just like, I'll joke around with them and they'll be like, oh, what's your name? I'm like, my name's Kwame. And like, your name's Kwame. You're Zimbabwean. How do we have a and then it's the whole conversation and
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
so that's kind of my story, really explaining that, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will get back onto your question. What happened is that I moved. I kind of after PE, I moved to Stockholm.
Okay.
And then from Stockholm, I went to school, did my studies and all. At the same time, I had a dream. The dream was actually to move to London, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just love the whole cultural thing and all that you guys have. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I don't think so many Londoners know about that, how beautiful it is. That you could have like Pakistani food anytime you want. I mean, like the real ingredients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the dream. But something just held me up in Sweden, and in 2001, I started working on the ship. I've finished my studies in catering and social services. Then, I got a job on the ship, and they told me to listen. We'll take you, but you need to go back to school and study more about how to be on the ship and safety and all this stuff. So I did that. I got that sorted out within no time, but at the same time, I was doing part time. I stayed there like for in total 18 years.
Okay.
They only kicked me out like in November last year when the pandemic wasn't stopping.
Yeah, coronavirus.
But in 2004, I met my first wife, actually.
Okay.
We were working together on the ship, and it was kind of like love at first sight. We were both 19, 20, somewhere there. If I remember. Yeah, 21, somewhere there. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and we kicked it off. I mean, she was like half Finnish, half Tanzanian.
Oh, cool.
And she loved the thing that I had an understanding of African culture, because I was kind of like fresh out of Zimbabwe, you know. So you can imagine someone who's like biracial, who's like kind of looking for their identity, and then they get to meet you, and you're like full of life and telling them about how Africa is, and they've only maybe been to Africa maybe once or twice. So it was kind of like overwhelming for her to meet me. So, and back then I was kind of lighter, and not lighter in complexion, but lighter in weight. But
I think we all back in
yeah. So it was like kind of like the attraction was real, and it didn't take long until I moved to Finland. Then like after like 9 months, she was like, "Oh, listen, I need to have a baby," you know, and you seem like the nicest person I've ever met, you know. Go figure. So so yeah, things moved quite fast, and we had a daughter, and yeah. Well, that went on, and things happened in my life. If you remember my brother, my big brother Owen, yeah, he was involved in a car crash. So we lost Owen. Okay. So I wasn't husband material at that point because I was kind of like broken. Then I moved on to the next to the next high. That was that was like wife number two.
Yeah.
Wife number two was well, she was here to take care of her dad, who was not feeling well. So she was living in Paris at that time point. Then, well, you think of your dad, you can't exactly, time doesn't go that fast. I mean,
yeah,
you kind of have to like, live a bit, while you're waiting, hospital, tests, all this stuff. So we were like hanging out and all that stuff. And she kind of liked my vibe, cool vibes of, the typical PE guy, like the one who has manners and who takes some shit, regardless what it is, he goes to work.
Yeah.
So she liked that. I mean, and I quickly became popular with the family because they quickly said, "Listen, Ngoni, without you, she was not going to stay here." So I became that person that would make her stay in Finland. It's a beautiful country to live in, but a lot of Finnish people don't like living here.
Oh, really?
Dark. Yeah, it's very dark. People are not so social, and the taxes are very, very high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Higher than Switzerland.
We're like cousins with Switzerland.
Like cousins. Like brother and sister.
yeah, like that. So the dad gets better. Then I told her, like, listen, you can go back to France. I can come and visit. And she's like, but if I leave, I'm quite sure you're gonna find someone else. So it was kind of like that situation again.
Yeah.
So I think that also I am to blame that things go kind of fast with me when it comes to women. It's within the first year that they're pregnant already. So yeah, so then she decided to stay. The mom, oh my God, she couldn't believe it.
Wow.
She like going, I mean, yeah. Tamed. I had actually tamed her. So
the mom as well.
Yeah, the mom was like, this guy. I mean, give this guy more chicken. Like I don't know. So yeah, so I she got pregnant, and then she gave me back my brother, my big brother Owen. So we named my first son, my second born, Owen Jr.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the one with the big curly hair.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to cut that hair. Yeah. So fast forward, we did the big wedding and everything. Like tons of people came.
Yeah.
That went on. Life happened, but in a way, we had a beautiful wedding, beautiful marriage. But as a man, when I like kind of like look back, like in retrospect, I should have taken her to Zimbabwe before we had our son, for her to see the struggle, like how women struggle, how men struggle, how families struggle together.
Yeah,
I didn't do that. I just thought there was enough that my mom was coming to visit, and that she would understand that point. It didn't work out that way. Fast forward, baby number two comes, named the baby after my mother. And she was very generous in naming the children after my, she understood my struggle. Like, I mean, this this guy, he loves his family, you know. So my second daughter is named after my mother, Sahara Sebia.
Okay.
So yeah, then we get older, and then I kept working, you know, and
did you spend more time apart while you were working?
Yeah. I mean, the money was coming in, but truth be told, for women, it is nice to go out for that dinner, but they'd rather have you at home, you know. And yeah, so I was of the mind that it was better to have the money than to spend time. So I kept doing what I did, and the relationship started breaking up and stuff. And then 2015, then went for therapy to kind of repair the relationship.
Right.
Yeah, and that was kind of a big issue to go for therapy.
So by then you had that was second marriage, was it, or?
Second marriage, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we only had, in total, I had 3 kids in total then.
Yeah,
and then my son, she was pregnant actually. Yeah, at that time, and then we went for therapy, and therapy wasn't good for me in general. Because the therapy was a reminder of our childhood.
Okay.
Yeah. The childhood of corporal punishment.
Right.
And which to the therapist didn't make sense.
Okay.
Like, you go to high school and this is what happens, and or et cetera, you know. So it never actually made sense. Like, what would you call chikudo in Shona? What that was. I mean, for the therapist, that was like bullying.
Right.
So for me, it was like, oh my God, that's the best time of my life. You know, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I realized that, oh my God, we're different levels of therapists. And try to explain to my ex-wife that I think that we need kind of like a tete, which is like a woman or a man or an uncle who understands both European culture and African culture.
Yeah. So for people that don't know what tete means, that's auntie in Shona.
Yeah. So she found it very amusing. Like, why would these therapists lie to us?
Yeah.
So I tried to give her like this, like an example of what I'm trying to say, like that you would understand, or maybe your wife would understand. Like when a comb is warmed up on a stove, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
For any African girl, it means that, oh my God, my hair again, you know. Yeah, and then she's kind of like. Yeah.
So it's like so for those that don't understand, this is almost like a not ancient, but yeah, it is kind of ancient, isn't it? A sort of ancient technique of combing rough African hair, women's hair in that time. Yeah.
So it didn't kind of make sense at all. So what we did is that we traveled. We're traveling a lot. I mean, I think every second month we're traveling, just to kind of get that vibe.
Yeah.
And try and find that love again.
Yeah.
The love was there.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But as a man, back then, like let's say 4 years ago, I would have totally denied responsibility.